All right. Hello and welcome back. This is Colin Keeley here.
And I'm Brent Sanders.
And we are two guys buying and building wonderful internet companies.
And the weather's starting to get cooler, hopefully in your neck of the woods. And it's been a while since we recorded. So just wanted to kind of drop an update, let everybody know we're still alive.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's been quite a while. I don't know where we could do an update across everything. Definitely part of this is that my internet is an issue. So my office isn't back. It's disconnected from the main house. And it's a small building, but the wireless for some reason doesn't connect super well. And it makes recording podcasts difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Zoom seems to do the best job. But yeah, we've tried a couple other things and it's been like, I think you're talking. And then you'll stop and be like, uh-huh.
Yeah,
It just
it's so
makes it kind
frustrating.
of hard to have a conversation. But I'm glad to see it. It does seem to be working well. I don't want to jinx anything, but yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, Texas and the internet, it's still evolving.
There's no excuse. I mean, it's a 100-year-old house, but it has Google Fiber, so it's like 1,000 down or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I have a wildly
Oh, that's
overpowered
awesome.
Wi-Fi setup. But the previous guy was like he's a developer of sorts. He retired now. He lives in Greece, but he has a house all wired for Ethernet, and there's like 15 Ethernet cables up in the attic. And there's an outlet here in the office, and I just cannot figure out which one's which. So I bought like a device to test them all.
Yeah.
And from that, it didn't work. I don't know. None of them work. So I think I have to hire someone to either run a new line or to test it better than I can test it for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an existing line, it's easy to switch it, right? If it's broken or something or it got cut. Like, I know when we moved into our house, we cut everything. There was like an old knob and tube, and we just ripped everything out because it's like you don't know what's connected to what, and it's just easier to just start from scratch. So that's one thing we did. Where there were existing stuff, you can just tie it to the old one, rip it out, put a new one in, and at least you know it's connected to something.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful he didn't just put some like booby trap line in here that doesn't exist anywhere else. It must exist somewhere. So we'll figure it out. We'll get back to podcasting.
Killer. Well, we should probably give an update on as far as acquisitions are going. Things are, I feel like it's in a season of stability, right? Like we're a little bit out of the active stabilization transition phase, which I guess on Scout took about what 18 months, and we're kind of in the we've reached an altitude and we're continuing to climb, but it's not like the same pace of change that things were, at least on the tech side, which is kind of refreshing. Like things have definitely gotten into a rhythm. Support tickets are way down. Just activity is slightly decreased from the pace of what, hey, we're switching databases, we're changing whole systems, and things are wildly different. On the tech side, I'll give an update on the tech side. It's like I think we might have talked about rolling out chat, like a real-time chat, and that's one thing that we chose a vendor. We chose a product called Sendbird to just kind of quickly get it into the product and get people in a beta, and ran into a lot of issues with it. And it's an expensive tool. It's an interesting problem space, right? Like real-time messaging. It's like multiplayer gaming, streaming data, streaming essentially like socket connections and push notifications and bring all that stuff together. But we're wrapping up rolling that out ourselves. We just ran into too many issues in the beta of people having problems. And then we reached out to Sendbird, right? Like their support. And when we signed up, and mind you, this is like, I think $3.99 to $5.99 a month. Those are the entry level tiers. And that's, you're limited by connections, right? So we have to think about, okay, every pet parent is a potential connection. Every staff member is a potential connection. So you basically multiply our user base by the customers and we have way more connections. So it really, if we allocated a connection for every user, it'd be thousands of dollars a month. So we're kind of doing it optimistically. And even then we just couldn't get it to work. And to how our beta group, we rolled it out for like 8 companies that were interested in it. And it went well. Like people were happy with it, but really frustrating things that I think I've experienced on other apps where like push notifications and chat, they don't come through. Like whether you forgot to click allow when you first downloaded it, but that turned into an issue and it's something we couldn't debug. So I reach out back to Sendbird being like, hey, we're struggling. All of our customers are saying they're not getting push notification, which makes the whole thing pointless, right? Like you're using the product, you're getting messages and you don't know it. Like you might as well just not have messages. And so originally signed up, I had an account manager reach out to the account manager. He's like, oh, you can work with like Tina. They're in charge of all the support or account management. They're your new allocated account manager. it was so like very clearly an AI, like a model. Like I'm on the lower tier. I can tell I'm not going to get enterprise support. And so I was like, okay, we're done with this. Like to the point where we were able to like change its instructions, like tell me, send responses and prompt engineer our way out of it. So that was a little disheartening because you make a vendor choice, but it got us much further along faster. So I wouldn't do it another way. But yeah, moving off, rolling our own messaging, which is not something I wanted to do, but we want to really control the experience. So that's like the main innovation going on right now in Scout.
Awesome. I don't know what to add to that really.
Yeah. I mean, it's just funny. I think the funny part is your new account manager, Tina, like trying to pass off, like, I guess the thing that I feel like there's like an ethical qualm that I have with like trying to pass off an LLM as a human and not saying like, hey, you guys are on the lowest tier. We offer support through a chat agent that's a bot. Don't try to give them a single name and pretend they're like a human. So I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but at least the feeling was it felt like an ethical thing that people are going to start dealing with more.
If
But yeah,
anything,
I don't know.
like an
That's
LLM
about it.
seems like quite an improvement over what you're normally given of just like, hey, have you read the support articles? You need more support? Like click all these things to the end of
Yeah.
time. Uh,
Yeah.
and then email. We're not going to reply to you at all for a day or a couple days or something.
Meanwhile, the LLM will just confidently lie to you and just be like, yeah, you just need to enable this feature and the feature doesn't exist. So, but yeah, it's something that I think as I see it get better, I think we'll definitely start taking advantage of it more. But yeah, I mean, there's only so many things that you can, in my mind, with something as complex as like, help me debug this issue. There's only like so many ways that it can be fixed that you should be able to train it to somebody, but just tell them it's a bot. Don't pretend it's Tina, your new teammate.
Yeah. I've had just customer service recently with ConvertKit. I asked them fairly complicated questions, and they always give delightful responses that go into my account and perfectly describe exactly what I'm supposed to do. It's
Nice.
clearly human, but has to be a huge cost to them. But it's super nice. Otherwise, I would never figure out that kind of stuff.
How do they deliver that to you? Do they send you an email with screenshots?
hmm
Oh, that's
With
great.
arrows mostly. It would be nice if it
Awesome.
was a loom or something, but yeah, arrows work fine.
Cool. Yeah. That's always good to see. I think that's like one of the things as I use SaaS products is like you can definitely like smell the state of the business based on the support level and the support engagement and like the quality of it.
Yeah. I guess other stuff kind of along those lines. I read a good book recently, Unreasonable Hospitality. So it's the story of a distressed restaurant in a fancy high rise in New York, 11 Madison Park. And over like 10 years, 10, 15 years, it rose from distress to like the number one restaurant in the world and
Hmm.
won all the awards, kind of like a Linea in Chicago in that style. And the guy wrote a great book about it. And I think it's super applicable to, I mean, not just restaurants, but kind of like any business with customers or clients, like any service-based business. One of the big things he touches on is like he calls them systematic surprises or magical moments. So like, basically identify any recurring moments in your business and how could you make that not more expensive or something, but just like more delightful, more thoughtful. And so, yeah, it was a fantastic book. I think it's going to become more and more important in this kind of age of AI where you could go hardcore on the automation route, or you could go like hardcore on the human touch point direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It is, I mean, it touches that exact same thing. Had it been a real person that's like Tina and the new teammate and they didn't seem like AI, I wouldn't have been offended and I would probably figured out my issue and not churned out of their company. But when it comes to this restaurant, like the learnings are basically like do the things for free, such as like remembering someone's name or whatever. I mean, what were some of the like the key pieces that they were doing to make it like a better experience?
So along remembering someone's name route, you put down reservations months in advance. It's a big expense for everyone, so it's a big deal. They would get rid of the host stand, so they make it more like welcoming you into a home, and they
Nice.
would Google everyone in advance, so they would know what you look like, so they could welcome you by name. Which actually Alinea does as well, because they knew me by name when we walked up for a reservation, which is pretty cool. The other thing that they do, so it's not about spending more money. Like he's actually maniacal about, he says it's the 95-5 rule. So really govern your business down to the penny for that 95% and recklessly spend that last 5%. But other stuff is
Nice.
just like really listening and trying to connect with customers. And if they mention anything and you could find a opportunity to really delight them, just go crazy about it. So like one, it's a big event if you're doing it in New York. So people were doing it like on their last day and they're like, oh man, I really want to try a New York hot dog and I never got a chance. And so they sent like a busboy down the street to buy a New York hot dog and then they plated it beautifully. And those stories are told to the end of time. And they would try to do those constantly to the point that they hired full-time people that was their sole job is making those delightful moments.
That's cool. That's really cool. I mean, you're not missing anything with a New York hot dog. Not to talk shit, but from Chicago, that's the only hot dog that I would really savor. The New York hot dog's just a sad, sad event.
Yeah, I don't actually know what a New York hot dog is. I know what a Philly hot dog is, but was New York just like a Chicago dog?
No, it's just like a sweaty, weird Nathan's hot dog. It tastes funky. It's not Vienna beef, and then they don't do all the stuff on it, like the
Huh.
onions, tomato, pickle, relish. It's usually just mustard, but they like this like foot long thing, and it's just ugh, it just doesn't just should it's an abomination. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, well, so I guess here's the thing, like rather than being a snob about it like me, like the chef might be, just be like, hey, let's get them. It's part of the mix. It is part of the flavor of the city, and so keep your ears open, kids. That's the lesson I'm taking away from it.
Yeah, I would say takeaways for your business is like look at all your touch points and what can you do that makes your business seem really thoughtful. Doesn't have to be expensive or anything, but like tactically at Jules, we're kind of going through it. Like, what is every touch point with the customer and how can we systematize that? Not so like the recruiters or the account execs that are put into a box, but to make sure we're talking to them constantly. They're always updated. And when they're updated in like a really nice format. So it's
Yeah,
like, what can we take off their hands and make nice? Another example from the book is like, this is kind of olden times where it was quarters in a meter. And so they would always have a stack of quarters. And whenever someone parked, they'd add a few more quarters. So no one was ever stressed about whether they're going to get a ticket or
yeah,
not when they're eating.
it's a nice touch. And
Yes.
how have you been spending your time? What's been going on your end?
Yeah, scaling up Jules has been, it's just a people heavy business. So we lost our kind of operations manager. I was happy for him. He took a job with a friend doing like a short-term rental management and seems to be going well. But he was like a core, touch point to the business. So we replaced him and then just scaling up, hiring more recruiters. We've been doing a lot more, let's say, finance or like accounting roles. So
Hmm.
accountants, bookkeepers, that kind of thing. And then scaling up like the size of customer. It's just come inbound. We haven't done like outbound to them or something, but it's just quite a process. I've never worked in a big company before. How they operate seemingly is crazy of like endless meetings.
Yeah,
You start a meeting and it's like, it's one person on our side and 10 on their side. And so the first 10 minutes are people introducing themselves and like, I'm in charge of this, I'm in charge of that. Um, but yeah, potentially it's a great customer with a lot of hires for us.
they talk about the enterprise sale, right? It's like you get a committee in, and it's just so easy for everyone to go, well, you need to have that champion, right? You need to have that person in those environments that's going to actually like put you under their arm and carry you through those meetings and continue to push you and then ask their peers the tough questions of like, what do we need to do to get this moving forward? Versus if you don't have that person, everyone's going to be like, great, thanks for coming. We'll keep it in mind. Let's book another follow up in a quarter. And oh,
Yeah, it was like, I mean, they asked us probably 200 questions. I think we have a RFP to fill out, which is just taking forever.
oh, you're responding to an RFP. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
this
new level
role.
of hell.
Yeah, it seems that way. So a lot of it is just like, I don't know, not applicable. I'm just writing NA for a bunch, but it's been good. Otherwise, continuing to grow, continue to scale the number of recruiters and trying to give unreasonable hospitality to the people that we can.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. In the
But
meantime, I've been working on a handful of like independent tech diligence projects. Probably some people that maybe listen to this podcast found us that way, and it's been really fun. I'll just say that I'm not gonna. I've signed an NDA for all of them, so I can't go into them on the podcast. But the fun part has been just you're digging into legacy software and just digging into security issues and different dispositions of different companies, and it's just wild out there. Like the amount of, I would say from what I'm seeing, it's like there are a lot of people still really interested in doing SaaS deals. I know as a market indicator, like, I think the general sort of expected returns or the general amount of revenue in the space is decreasing. Deal size is definitely like decreasing, but at the scale that you and I really deal with, it's kind of a different market, right? It still is very people are very interested in buying them as their either first business, side business, or they had an outcome and they want to get into a new line of work or doing a search fund type thing. I'm specifically speaking of like $1 to $10 million deals, and there's just a lot of like interest in there. There still seems to be more demand than there is supply. So people are looking at stuff that you'd otherwise like run from, trying to see, hey, is there a hidden gem here? Is there a deal to be had? And the tech and security debt that I've seen on some recent stuff has been like mind boggling. A scenario where somebody has been paying just a dev team for 10 years and they've never actually like looked under the hood or asked any questions. And they come to find out when they're selling the business that actually they're handling credit cards in a way that, or they're handling API requests that could end their business or get them in a lot of trouble. So been a handful of those deals, which has been actually really rewarding because it's stuff that I'll do initially in the engagement. Like I break it into two parts. Essentially, first to be like, hey, let's do a quick sniff test. Let's look at the product and see is there anything like wildly wrong. And then the second part is like the real engagement because I don't want like dead deal costs, right? I don't want to go down with this and then be like, oh, at the end of $5,000 to $10,000, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do this deal, and now I still have to pay Brent, which I don't want to be in that position. But yeah, it's been a lot of like quick rejections or quick projects that way, where there's some wild stuff for wild valuations that needs to be quarantined. It contains a ton of risk. So
So
yeah, that's
when
what's been
it's a
going on my end.
quick kill, I mean, what's the kill? It's like you have some crazy credit card potential danger that it's not worth walking into.
Existential risks to the business, like API requests that we've seen. It's a lot of it is stuff that we've seen on the business that we've run and managed, where it's like, oh, somebody can use a real account and they can send 10,000 emails. Well, like, what if they could send 10,000 requests to like a banking API or 10,000? Like, you'll get disconnected, or an API that you have proprietary access to that could be shut off if you abuse it. And if you're not monitoring it, someone else could abuse it if they knew that every time they click this button, it sent something, or that every time the button gets sent, they can maliciously like, that's 10 cents and they could just hit it a million times a day and draw you into bankruptcy. So like really critical stuff that is like the critical functionality of like critical path of functionality, like getting disrupted if it was abused. And thankfully, no one's abused their system before or yet, and hopefully they won't. But coming in as a buyer, being like, oh God, I'm going to have to like rewrite this or rebuild this or essentially come up with a different way of working. And that's what you're buying. You're buying the existing path. You're buying the existing customers. And as like we've gone through, hey, let's change from Braintree to Stripe, or there's going to be headaches with that. There's going to be problems with that, and it's going to be disruptive. So when you're looking at a new acquisition, it's like people just not willing to take on that risk.
So is it? I mean, those seem like well-defined issues, which would scare me less, right? Because it sounds like something that's fixable. Is it really a quick kill situation, or it's like it is a serious risk on day one? This has to be sorted, or is it like it's so bad it's not even worth doing?
Yeah, well, so if like my thinking is, and my advice usually is, hey, dude, if I can find this within an hour of clicking around, like what else? This is stuff I can find. I don't even have a login to their product. Like I'm on public facing stuff. If these principles are being followed here, like what else is on it? Like then you're playing this game of like what else is going to come out of the woodwork? And so my advice to buyers is to go back to the seller and be ready to negotiate and say, hey, you want 6 million for this? Let's talk more like 3 and see if there's still a deal there. And some that has worked for folks that I've done diligence projects where like immediately I come in and it's like, whoa, this is bad. Like you're going to have maybe not existentially bad. Like the business could evaporate overnight, but you're going to have to invest a lot and go back to them. And people have gotten great deals because of that. So I would definitely advocate for trying to negotiate your way through it. I'm much rather see a deal get done than not. But if it's like, hey, there's a bunch of cash on the line and it could literally evaporate. But yeah, you can mitigate all that stuff. I guess it also comes into like the profile of the buyer. Like if they are the buyer that wants to do a turnaround versus like they're buying cash flow and they expect it to keep rolling and not make any changes.
Okay, yeah, I would. definitely end up there where if it is millions in revenue and it's recurring revenue and people are paying for it and getting value out of it, it's almost like at some scale, if it's big enough, there's like no tech debt that would be so bad that it's not worth something. Like
Yeah,
it would be worth renegotiating and getting it sorted. But yeah, people are paying for it. People are happy with it. It's making millions of dollars. Seems like there's something there.
it's always easier to say no, right? On any deal, it's always easier to be like, okay, this isn't going to work because there's some tech debt. So I usually go in with that mindset of like, don't come out and just say no, and it's terrible. But in certain cases, it's like, hey, if this were to get abused, and you could slap fixes on it, but again, it then comes into, will they negotiate, and then are you the type of buyer that, would you be better off just building something else or buying something else because you're gonna end up putting more into it than you'll get out to. But truly, yeah, if it's millions of revenue, put it in a container, figure out how not to touch it, pour concrete over it, and keep it going, right?
Yeah. Yeah, make sure you pay Brent to identify the issues so they're not hidden it. And as long as you know what's going on, like you could deal with it.
Yeah, true, true.
I don't know. Anything else you wanted to cover?
No, just getting ready for fall, getting ready for trick or treating season, ready for spooky season. The kids are already picked out their second Halloween costumes already. They've already gone through the first, and yeah, pretty excited for it. They're finally getting the age where they've been like more of the handing out candy age, like staying at home, and I think they're ready to venture out and go on their own and do some trick or treating. So I'm pretty excited. Might
Nice.
might shed a tear.
I'll leave one more book recommendation. I just finished it. Money Trap. It's like, have you heard of the Vision Fund, the like $100 billion venture fund that was throwing
Oh
money around
yeah.
like crazy? So this was written by like the finance Masayoshi-san is like the main guy, the CEO of SoftBank. And this is like the right-hand man, the finance guy behind it. And so he wrote this book and you think it's horrible because investment banker wrote it, it's going to be bad, but it's actually beautifully written and like really engaging. So Money Trap is great to see like the behind the scenes of these multi-billion-dollar deals.
Oh, I'll
Uh,
check it out. I'll check it
yeah.
out for sure. It sounds good.
One little teaser is wasn't in the book because he didn't want to get sued, it sounded like. It came out after the fact. Wall Street Journal did an expose on it. So the like clear front runner to be the replacement to the CEO, they kept getting these weird like personal attacks and like legal suits against them. And they could never trace it because it's like bouncing all around the world. And it was like the number four in line was particularly
Go ahead.
these like attacks, and they try to do a honeypot. So they'd hire like a prostitute to try to like seduce one of the
Oh
guys.
God.
But it kind of is woven throughout the story, and it didn't come out till afterwards what the deal was. But yeah, crazy stakes, I guess, if you're trying to control $1 trillion.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Very cool. I'll check that out.
Cool. All right. That's all I got.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Great to catch up, and we'll be back soon.
All right. Take care.